Hello, my name is Faye Mogensen, and I am very happy to be part of the Ottawa Children's Storytelling Festival here in 2022. I am joining you from the west coast of Canada, from the island called Pender, which lies in the Salish Sea between Victoria and Vancouver. In ancient times, and by those who still remember, it is also called Sideus. And it is part of the unceded ancestral territory of the Tsimshian-speaking people of the Wasanich First Nation. I am very happy to be a guest on the territory. I've lived in the territory for many years, but only 2 years on Sideus. Still, I remember very clearly the first time I came. 32 years ago. I know the date exactly because I was pregnant with my daughter, Kaya. Oh, my heart was happy. I was going to have a baby. But my head? Oh, my head was full of worry, fretting, stewing. And I did what I always do when I'm full of worry. I started to have sleep challenges. Oh, at night I would toss and turn, and by morning I wasn't very well rested. I told some of my friends about it, and they said, "We've got to do something, Faye." One of them suggested a yoga retreat. Yoga's relaxing. Yes, and I like to stretch. I like to bend, and I like to balance. So why not give it a try? We signed up, we packed up our bags, we sailed across the ocean blue until we came to Sideus. We made our way to a small farm with a small farmhouse. And that night, when I went to bed, I recognized how very small the bedroom was, too. 6 of us were packed in there. Sleep challenges. I spent the night listening to my roommates breathing. Some snored. And I tossed and turned and tossed and turned. By morning, I wasn't very well rested. Still, I participated. I stretched, I bent, I balanced. And by noon, I was tired. Tired and very happy to hear the instructions for the early afternoon, which were to go and find a cozy spot somewhere on the farm and to lie quietly for a full hour. I found my cozy spot between a tall tree and some thick bush, and I lay down. Oh, but then I heard the bees buzzing and the leaves trembling in the wind. I tossed and turned. And then, suddenly, when a classmate yelled out, "Orcas!" I jumped right up and I ran straight down to the beach, as did all the other people attending the retreat. We stood there watching. And we oohed and we awed and we oh'd because the orcas were leaping and jumping and cavorting. I had never seen such a big pod of killer whales. There was a grandma, a mom, teenagers, even a baby, and they leapt and they jumped and they cavorted and we oohed and we awed and we oh'd, and the more we did that, the more they seemed to leap and jump and cavort. On and on it went until suddenly my legs turned to jelly. I had to sit down. The pebble beach made a nice place to nestle into, and I leaned up against a log, and I continued to ooh and ah and oh, because the orcas continued to leap and jump and cavort. But as I leaned back, I guess I made a little more room for baby Kaya, because all of a sudden I could feel her. She was leaping and jumping and cavorting inside me. It was wonderful. I felt so connected to those orcas. And then I laughed at myself, because suddenly, somehow, I'd been reminded that I was not the only one. People everywhere are always having babies, and so are animals, like that grandma whale and the mother whale in the pod. I laughed some more, and after that, my sleep challenges, well, almost disappeared. My heart was happy. My happy drum. My mom's family came to Canada from Iceland, and that is where this story comes. It's about a dairymaid, and it's about a huldukona. That's one of the magical people of Iceland. Oh, there are many varieties of magical people there. But first, the dairymaid. Just like me, she had sleep challenges. But hers was on account of all the crazy dreams she seemed to have all the time. They caused her to toss and turn and not sleep all that well. And in the morning, she could barely figure them out. Until one night, her dream was very clear. It was a huldukona, one of the hidden people, the magical people that came to her. Oh, and the huldukona, she had tears running down her cheeks. She said, "My wee baby is sick. She needs medicine, quick. Your cow's milk will do the trick." And then she went on to explain just where the dairymaid should leave a crock of cow's milk each day. Well, the dairymaid woke up. She thought, well, yes, why not? I might as well help. And so when she had milked the cow, she filled a crock full of that milk, and she set it there on the side of the barn where the huldukona had indicated. Each day, the milk disappeared, and each night, the dairymaid slept well. So it went for about a month, maybe a little more, and then the dairymaid had another dream. It was the huldukona again, but now she was smiling, a great big smile. And she said, your cow's milk did the trick. It helped very quick. And now my baby is no longer sick. The dream went on, and in it, the huldukona said to the dairymaid, "You must make your bed well in the morning." Morning came, and the dairymaid thought that was a strange set of instructions. But she made her bed well. She shook her duvet. She lifted her pillow to shake it and found underneath it a most beautiful necklace. Oh, it made her heart happy to see it. She had been rewarded very generously for her own generosity. And better still, her sleep challenges all but disappeared, because now she knew that if she paid attention to her dreams, she could again shine. My father's family come from Denmark. His parents, my grandparents, and I had the opportunity to live there for 3 years as well. So I'd like to share next a story from Denmark featuring one of the Danish magical people, a kind of trickster called a Nisse. It's also about a man named Lars. Lars was an easygoing fellow with a good attitude. He always figured that things would work out. And so I suppose it's not all that surprising that he would be the one to take over the farm down the road. When his friends and family found out, they said, "Lars, what are you thinking? Don't you know? No one who's lived on that farm has had any luck in the last 100 years." People said, "It's the soil. It's too soggy or too sour or something for anything to grow." Other people said, "The place is haunted." Lars shrugged his shoulders. "Things'll work out," he said. Still, on the day he arrived on the farm, he did worry a bit, because it was true. The fields were barren and bald. But instead of letting his worries get to him, he called out, "Hello, Baldy!" Well, to his surprise, a voice replied, "Hello." He looked. No one was there. But just in case, he called out again, "Whoever you are, wherever you are, please know I like company. Come on down to the house and visit me. If I don't see you before Christmas, be sure you come then." Well, Lars soon forgot all about this strange arrival on the farm. He was too busy. There were fences to mend, sickly animals to tend. There was a stable to repair, and fields and gardens to prepare. He worked, and he worked, and he worked. And suddenly it was Christmas. Time for a break. He prepared the best feast he could manage, which wasn't much, but was something. He laid the food out on the table and then began to wish that he had company. No sooner did he wish that than there was a knock at the door. He opened it. "Hello!" Again, he couldn't see anyone. But then he heard a little wee voice, "Hello!" And he looked down. That was the source of the voice. Way down, it was a little wee man with a long gray beard and quite a bald head. The man didn't wait. He marched right into the house, crawled up on a stool, and began to eat. Lars could see that this was a Nisse, and this Nisa was hungry. He offered him more and more food, and the Nisa continued to eat and eat and eat. Lars tried to get some conversation going, but the Nisa didn't have much to say. No, he just ate and ate and ate until he was full. And then he pushed back his chair, hopped off the stool, and marched to the door. Lars followed after him. "It was lovely to see you. Come again." "New Year's," said the Nisa. "New Year's? Are you coming back?"
"My place."
"Your place? Oh, I'd be delighted. Where do you live?"
"Stable."
The stable. As Lars watched the Nisa walk off, he began to think how he hadn't noticed any kind of dwelling near the stable, but on New Year's Eve, off he went to the stable, and now he knew to look down. There he was, the Nisa, beckoning for Lars to follow. Down a little path along the side of the stable, in through a small opening. Oh, Lars had to get down on his hands and knees and crawl down through a tunnel, which opened out into a large cavern, all lit up with candles. Lars found a place to sit, and the Nisa was about to pass him a bowl of rice pudding, Nisa's favorite food, when suddenly a great big drop of black liquid fell right between Lars's legs. The Nisa pulled the bowl back, and Lars tried to understand what was going on. He moved out of the way, and he was glad he did, because more and more drops of black liquid kept falling on the spot where he sat. What is it?" The Nisa pointed up.
"Stable."
"The stable is right up there," and Lars thought, "Ooh, yuck. That black liquid is not very pleasant." He and the Nisa crouched together on the side of the cavern, ate their rice porridge, and Lars began to come up with solutions. Well, I'm pretty handy with a shovel. I could dig you out a whole new cavern somewhere else." Was all the Nisa said. Well, could I fix the ceiling then? I could repair the ceiling. I could seal it right up. Nothing would get through," said the Nisa. "Well, then," said Lars, "I suppose you want me to move the stable." And now the Nisa smiled a great big smile. So the very next day, Lars began moving that stable brick by brick and board by board onto the other side of the farmyard, where the Nisa had told him would be safe. The amazing thing was that once the stable was built and Lars moved his animals inside, the sheep's fleece seemed to grow thicker. The pig grew more plump, and the cow's milk tasted sweeter and richer than ever. Even better, that spring, when Lars sowed his seeds, it seemed that every single one sprouted, and the rye grass grew tall as Lars himself. The neighbors came by, very curious. "How'd you do that, Lars?" Lars said, I worked things out." When the neighbors noticed the stable was in a new location, they wondered if that was why. And you know that is why. I've often wondered whether any Nisa made their way from Denmark to Canada in my grandparents' suitcase. You see, in Denmark, Nisa are found on every farm, in most houses, and my grandparents moved to a farm. I asked my dad. This is what he told me. When I was 8 years old, we'd been at the school concert in my one-room schoolhouse, and I was feeling relieved. I was feeling so relieved. I crawled right into the sleigh box, lay down in the straw that my mom had put there, and pulled up the blanket. It was so cozy and warm. I heard my dad to the horses, and off we set. I can still hear the sound of the sleigh runners on that hard-packed snow. Swoosh. That's what my dad said 80 years later. He could still hear it. And then he went on to say, and the stars that night, oh, they were magical. There must have been 1 billion of them, twinkling and shining. Oh, I felt completely enchanted. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember my parents bringing my little brothers into the house. I don't remember them coming into our bedroom to say one last good night, because I wasn't there. My dad had already put his pajamas on, but he took his overcoat on top, he put his boots on top, and he tromped out to the barn and found me in the sleigh box. He said I fell asleep there, but I don't think so. I think Anissa cast a spell on me. With a dad like that, telling stories like that, perhaps it's not so surprising that I feel like I've found tricksters in nature, like the orca, or in this story that takes place in the mountains of British Columbia. It had been 7 long years since I'd last seen my good friend Shannon. On the bus, I could hardly wait as we wound up that mountain road. Once we got to Lake O'Hara, with its beautiful turquoise waters, I rushed out of the bus. Shannon and I wrapped our arms around each other. And do you think I really noticed that beautiful lake? No, I was too busy yakking with Shannon. We slept in her cabin that night, and in the morning we packed up some perfect lunches and other supplies into our backpacks and set off up the trail. Before long, we came to a magnificent wildflower meadow. But do you think we really saw the red-flowered paintbrush, the blue lupins, or the yellow arnica? Barely. We were too busy yakking. We carried on up the trail, and now we were passing great big boulders, winding our way through them. We heard a peek, peek, peek sound. But do you think we stopped to really try to see the small animals that were making that sound? No, we were too busy yakking. We made our way up onto a ridge and out to a lookout, the perfect place to have our perfect picnic. But do you think we really tasted the cheese that was on our sandwiches or the chocolate in our trail mix? No, we were too busy yakety yak yakking. As we sat there, dark gray clouds began to roll in. We woke up just a little then. And we woke up even more when we began to feel a strange tingling sensation all up and down our arms and up and down our legs. And when I looked at Shannon, I saw that some of her hair was standing on end. There was electricity in the air. We knew it. We threw everything back into our backpacks, threw them on, and we ran straight down that ridge. We ran into some trees. Trees that were not too tall so that they'd be noticed by a lightning bolt, but taller than us so that the lightning bolt wouldn't notice us. And we stood there waiting, watching, wondering. Nothing much happened. A few drops of rain. That was it. Nothing happened except that now we were awake and paying attention, so that as we walked back to Shannon's cabin, we smelt the sweet smell of pine sap. We heard and looked out for the haw, haw, haw ravens. We even heard bzzz of a hummingbird, and we found it too. Back at the lodge, we told people about our day. And a scientist said, that was St. Elmo's fire. It is good luck to sailors. It's a time when there's lots of electricity in the air, but it's all spread out. It doesn't collect into a lightning bolt, so nobody gets hurt. We also learned that had it been nighttime, dark, we would have glowed with a blue light. St. Elmo's fire. And since then, when I catch myself being too busy yakety yak yakking, I remind myself of that St. Elmo's fire day, and I try to pay attention to what's around me. One last story, a short one that my dad told me. He said that on the farm, one of his favorite spots was the poplar grove. He loved to go there and hang out underneath those trees. One day when he went there, he saw something shimmering and shining in the sunlight on the ground. He bent down and picked it up. It was a teeny tiny key. There must be a box that goes with it. And he looked around some more, and then there it was, a beautifully carved box. He tried it, the key, it fit. He turned it, the box opened, and inside was a tail. My dad said, if only that tail had been longer, so too would his tail have been. Snip, snap, snout, this tale is told out. And snip, snap, snout, all my tales are told out. You've met, well, a few of the tricksters in my life, from the magical creatures of Iceland and Denmark, the Hulukona and the Nisa, to the orca whales, and St. Elmo's fire, and my dad. I'm sure that you have some stories about tricksters in your life, or maybe some stories about trees or birds or rocks. Please share them with your friends and family. And thank you so much for listening to my stories.